Always happens. All
We
right.
have four time zones today, which is always fun. And the best part, it's my favorite forum that we do. I think it gets the best, I don't know, interaction going with our user base. With this, just let us have it with the Q&A, and we've got
I agree.
the top dogs on the call here, ready to answer the question. There's already a bunch here. Let's see here.
Do you want me to moderate and tee them off?
Go.
Are you guys ready?
Attack.
The first question is, can a GIF/video be embedded? Answer is yes. Does someone want to, maybe Stephen or Suzanne want to share your screen? So, sorry, go ahead.
Anything that renders in a web page will render in Singular. Let me just start by saying that, because we are creating web pages in Singular, really sophisticated, cool web pages that don't look like web pages. They look like amazing graphics. But on the video piece, we do not support uploading video files to your Singular accounts for a whole host of reasons, one of which being lots of data can come pounding in on our S3 buckets, which is where the data is hosted. So we have not done that, but there's nothing stopping you from hosting videos on other servers that you create and manage on your own. As long as they are publicly accessible, you can use those video links in a number of our video widgets, of which we have, I don't know, I think there's 4 or 5 flavors of video widgets in the widget library. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, and then for the GIFs, just really fast, you can use obviously just an image widget, and it accepts GIFs. So
the image widget supports all the usual suspects of GIF, PNG with and without transparency, and WebP, which is a really nice codec from Google, I believe. Did I miss any? Yeah, those are the JPEG, obviously. I'm really partial to PNGs usually across the board, which, by the way, as long as we're talking about images, and then I'll go to the next question, tinypng.com. Great, phenomenal little website. Upload your PNGs, your JPEGs, and it will further compress them. You will not see the compression using their service, and we use it extensively because the smaller the image, the faster the load, because we are making web pages, really, really cool ones. Next question.
Ready for the next one? Okay, cool. Next question from Mike is, any plans for new templates in the template library? And I can sort of address this loosely and say that we're discussing this. We're discussing how we could maybe approach it from a little bit of a different angle. We obviously made the template library and Singular before this product we have existed, called overlays.uno, which is a product we have for streamers. It's template based. And since launching overlays.uno, we're kind of refocusing Singular on being very enterprise focused, obviously. And with that, we're sort of considering what the template library would look like for those, enterprise high-end pro customers like you guys. So we are considering things, and that's as much as I can say right now. So,
it's a good answer. It's a good answer because, I mean, the requests are all over the place for, I want green, blue, big, small, round, every kind of design you could possibly think of. So, yeah, I would simply say that some of them have been in there for a long, long time, but they're still applicable. They're a starting place. We can't possibly build out everyone's whim. We can simply try our best to give a good selection, and then you can go and modify them as such. But yes, the list is long for the requests, as we know, and we try our best to add. But yes, I would like to see some new templates in the library, but it comes up against all kinds of other requests. But hopefully what we have now gets you off the runway, so to speak.
Yeah, let me add one thing to that topic, which is we constantly enhance and extend the functionality of our standard control applications, also by extending the fill-in form. So we are currently working on an advanced and enhanced functionality to group control nodes in fill-in forms, to add more logic to fill-in forms like counters. You can add +1, +2, +3, and you define that however you will. There is a lot more coming up. we currently test it on beta.singular.live. If you want to have a look, go there. You can log in with your account, but please don't use that yet for production. We always try to be backwards compatible, and that's also the case here, but it's still in an early testing phase. So you can look at it, create your own control labs based on that, and you will see that the fill-in forms with nice groups and panels will dynamically adapt to the space that's available. So even without a new version of the Studio app, you'll get new and enhanced and extended functionality with the new control nodes and fill-in forms we are going to release pretty soon.
Yeah, this is really exciting. I'm excited to see this in app because it completely enhances the control user experience for operators, and you know, for artists. Suzanne probably can attest to this. Stephen, you as well. The creativity that you can have now within Composer to set up a really interesting and effective control experience for your operators. So it's going to be a really cool update that we'll obviously update you guys on in an email.
Oh, it's coming. I got a little sneak preview from our R&D guys, and it is really good. It's a major upgrade. I'm glad Thomas teased that a little bit. We can turn the screws on the R&D guys, make them get it done quicker. It's a heck of a lot of work, but it is really impressive. So the control aspect, just stepping away from this topic real quick, but just rounding it off, is going to greatly expand, like the ability to, like Thomas said, adding +1, +2, -1 for making like scoreboards or whatever you need to do with changing values. And there's a whole heck of a lot more. So big update coming sooner than later. Next question. Where are we here?
I'm going to jump down. Ellie, I responded to you directly. So we'll figure that out. Frank, let's see. What are the main differences between Studio and Uno? And when is it more appropriate to use one versus the other? That's a good question. Stephen, I think you probably have the most.
Yes, Studio was the first thing that sort of came out of it was our first offering for controlling overlays that were created with Composer. And it follows sort of a traditional, I'll call it broadcast mindset, where you have preview, program, and a list of graphics. It does not have an API, which is somewhat limiting. But for so many things, it's pretty nice. If you need to be able to preview, then go to air or out your output URL, make multiple playlists. Uno was designed really with exactly that word in mind. Uno, do one thing and do it really well. In some cases, we stretch that a little bit. So an Uno might have, say, 3 or 4 overlays. You might have multiple overlays in an Uno app. Not to be, but at a certain point, it might get overwhelming just because of the nature of the way it's laid out. So it does not have preview. So it's just a direct shot. I would say, generally speaking, overlays that are designed to be used in Uno would be streams, live streams. Not that you can't do it in Studio, but it's not a massive amount of graphics from a UI in Uno, in any number of one of our Unos. If you get more sophisticated with an Uno, you can certainly introduce a stream deck to your Uno, and then you can have lots and lots of graphics like you might have in Studio. But I would say that would probably be just a little bit more advanced, not overwhelming. The Stream Deck plugin for Uno is really well received. So I think super easy to use. So you could program a Stream Deck button with as many, for example, lower thirds controlled in an Uno as you want. So you can expand with Uno. And again, because it has an API, it also has the Stream Deck plugin, which has its advantages over some scenarios where Studio might fall short with the lack of the API. So hopefully that answers the question in a couple angles.
All right, next question here.
I see one number of people using a control app. Is there a limit or a best use scenario? There are no limits in Singular, absolutely none.
That's the power of the web.
You can open
Well,
up.
there are caveats to that. Everyone can use a control app, but if you're both editing at the same time, then you might trip up.
Yeah, as with any web, sort of.
That's the only downside to having multiple people using a control app at the same time.
Well, is that the question, or was it like multiple apps?
Well, it says, either way,
Okay,
it's still good to know.
Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Well, there's two questions, and this is a good one to unpack. The first is, can you open up a control app in multiple locations at the same time? I think, is there a limit?
Okay.
There's no limit. Control apps can be opened. It's a web page. You can open it as many times as you want. If you're logged into your Singular account and you open the app, if you notice the URL, that URL is only accessible from being logged into that account. You can go in the upper right-hand corner and get the shared app URL and then share it with the public. So anybody, anywhere can be opening it up. And multiple people can sign into the same Singular account and open up the app from within the account. But the next question is, and it's a good one here, we have built projects where 3 people are needed to run it properly, and it leads to issues pulling in data and previews don't load in the app. I'm just going to speculate on maybe what the issue is here. For example, some customers have groups of graphics. Let's say one person's operating one type of graphic, a full screen, another one's doing a lower third, and another one's doing maybe pop-ups at the bottom or some other type of graphic. What you could do is have 3 control apps, take the outputs of those control apps, put them into a new composition where I'll call them, group them, use our web page widget, and just take the outputs of multiple apps and feed it into one control composition. Effectively, what you have then is just one output from one, I'll call it the output app, that is just being fed by 3 different controllers or Studio instances or Uno instances. So hopefully that answers the question, I think.
Yeah, and you can do that, or obviously you can just have multiple different browser sources inside of your production software. It depends on what you're using. Some production software limits you to one, but what Stephen's talking about is actually a pretty popular approach that we have for a lot of customers, and just to sort of aggregate all outputs into one. And this is specific to like combining Unos more often than not with like a Studio control app. Is that the specific question you were answering, Stephen? Because there is one above.
Yeah, I think it was the one from, I think it's Jonathan, if I'm not mistaken. Context
oh, no, Luke. Luke's got a question here. He says, can it be possible to create our own template as a mix between Studio and Uno? And what Stephen was just speaking about is sort of that approach. Studio and Uno are obviously 2 different control interfaces, and those can't be combined into one sort of interface. They're separate. But if you want those outputs in a single output, you could take the little creative, but you take the Uno output and you funnel it into your main Studio composition, and then you can kind of toggle on and off that specific Uno graphic. So it's a little bit of a creative approach. It's not completely cohesive. We understand that there are limits to that, but it works. So
yeah, this is pretty frequently used when you have a sports production and the Uno app just controls the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And you have a Studio app instance for controlling all the lower thirds or the full screen graphics. So then there is you use just the web page widget and feed in the output URL of the Uno app into that web page widget, which also can be then controlled from the Studio playlist. This way you have 2 control apps for its specific parts and the flexibility to control. The other way how I interpret Luke's question is, can you build and create your own control apps? And yes, that's possible. We have an app SDK, which we use to build all the control apps with. And that's information we can share some examples, but it requires in-depth knowledge of JavaScript, some CSS and HTML to really dive into it. If you're interested in that, just send me an email or create a ticket on the support portal.
Yeah, and so the link that I just dropped into the chat essentially says the same stuff. It's on a per request basis because it is quite deep.
I will say, I think, Thomas, I'm glad you chimed in about the, you have an Uno app, you have a Studio app, you take the output URLs into another composition, you add 2 sub-compositions, each with the web widget, you take the output URLs from Studio and Uno, and now you have just the outputs of the Studio and Uno in this. But there's one caveat here. People, if you run rogue with that, when I mean run rogue, well, it's running really slow because I have 14 Uno apps going into this thing. And well, and a lot of people might ask us, well, what's the limit? Well, it's sometimes there are no limits on the web, but you're trafficking a lot of web traffic. I'll leave it at that. Each one of these web page widgets display a web page is an iframe, right? So it's going to slow at some point. It's going to start slowing down. It's kind of like, well, it's different, but same sort of end result. We've had some customers who have really taken off with Google Sheets and added the Google Sheet widget a number of times.
50 times.
It's a lot of traffic going back and forth. So we can't give you total quantifiable limits to how many web pages you can traffic into one singular composition using our web page widget. You just have to play with it. 3, 4, 5, probably okay. I think of one customer offhand that has like 4 Unos being fed into one studio with other graphics, and they're having no problem. They have a pretty fast internet connection, everything's fine, but at a certain point it might start slowing down. So
it really all depends on obviously how these graphics are built as well. Like if you think about a website, if you've got massive, gigabytes or megabytes worth of assets that you're referencing, of course it's going to be a slow loading website. I mean, you guys all probably know a website that takes a long time to load. It's because it's not built, optimally. So there are ways that you can optimize your compositions to kind of limit that from happening. But, Singular's pretty, you have to do a lot to kind of run into those issues. Let's just leave it at that, I guess. Like what I was saying before, sometimes customers use, 50 Google Sheets widgets, and then of course things get a little hairy. So it just case by case basis. But I'll send you all a link to how to tips on how to optimize compositions, because you might find some things in there that are interesting that you hadn't thought of before. We've got some more interesting questions here. Let's see. Miran, we've met with you. Hi, thanks for joining. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. Steven can say it better. He's got a great question. Thank you. Would it be possible to import pre-designed layers from an Illustrator file and then set up the logic and animations in Singular? So that sounds like SVG files potentially. Animation, I think it's a little tricky with that.
Yes, Mihan
Suzanne's
and I,
expert on.
Yeah, specifically for Mihan, because we had a nice chat the other day, I think it was yesterday, and one prior. What I have not shown you yet, and I think we have a video on it, is the body moving widget, because I know Mihan uses After Effects quite extensively and showed me some cool animations he's done, and could we do those kinds of things in Singular? Yes, a lot of them we can. The body moving widget is kind of a cool one where you can basically animate basic shapes in After Effects and the basic geometrics in After Effects, scale, position, opacity, rotation. You can export as a JSON file and then play it back in Singular. But you can't do all of the effects that you have in After Effects. I don't want anyone to believe that we can play back in After Effects in a web page in a singular composition, but we can do this playing back with a JSON file that's generated from After Effects. Specifically to your question about Illustrator, the layers from an Illustrator file, we don't really have any sort of plugin that I know of, or we haven't built anything that takes an After Effects file directly, and Illustrator, and brings it into a composition.
So you can export, if you have a weird shape, you can export it as an SVG file, and as you export it as an SVG, it'll give you all the data. Again, it is just a data dump from that. It will allow you to change colors if you decide to. There might be some scripting involved with if you want to change the colors on the fly, but it's definitely something you can do. I mean, it can get kind of messy quite quickly when you start to try and resize them within Composer, so it is kind of a double-edged sword. But that is, again, with body moving, there's a double-edged sword with that, because you can't, if you're one that uses a lot of heavy expressions, you won't be able to use those. Time remapping gets a little bit funky as well. There's just some fun things that can happen with body moving and SVG widgets, but they do allow you to extend things slightly further. Like if you do have a really weird shape that you want to have adjustable elements within, like the color, the stroke width, or anything like that, then definitely using an SVG is a lot better than trying to build it within Singular.
And
Suzanne's,
that's
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
To Suzanne's point, if you're an Illustrator and you export out an SVG file, an actual file that's on your desktop, you import it into your dashboard, you bring in the image widget, and you display the image. Done. You can see it. It looks great. What Suzanne mentioned, the other way, is you could export from Illustrator the SVG file. Now that's going to be a file, and if you open it up, it's a text file. It's the SVG. It's the scalable vector graphic definition of what you're drawing. We have a widget called the SVG widget, and if you drop that SVG file into the SVG widget, it will display it. If you're really sophisticated, we've done this before, Suzanne. I can think of one project where you and I did this. I think we were manipulating the SVG file, if I'm not mistaken, that we were drawing the actual SVG, not the file, but the code.
Yeah.
So it's possible. It's not for the faint at heart, I will say, but it's definitely
it's not really
doable.
It's not really something that you would want to use for advanced animation stuff. It's more for, like Suzanne said, changing colors on the fly if you want to do that. But I think even more so, it's just primarily to have an optimal composition, an optimized composition, instead of using an image file. Because obviously the less amount of image files and external files that you use, the more optimized your composition is. So, but in terms of your follow-up question, Miran, in terms of rendering an image sequence of pre-animated graphics and then importing that into Singular, he's saying it's for more complex animations. I think we would recommend the video animation widget, which is a really sophisticated widget that allows you to define a video file as an in animation and then a video file as an out animation. So unless you guys think that there's something better than that, but I think that in most cases that is sort of the recommendation for advanced animation that you're defining elsewhere instead of natively within Singular's toolset.
Yeah, I mean, advanced animations would just be something like if it has a ping pong effect, like you could do that using the body moving. If it's an advanced, like things like flash up, flash down, go left and right, definitely then using the advanced animation widget would be better. Because that way you know it's going to be you'll know it'll look right and have all the correct timings to it. And
keyframing and such.
Oh, there's a lot of questions in here.
Yeah, next one here, Jonathan, in regards to data streams, is there a way to have a user interface to funnel through information coming in so if someone doesn't know coding, they can still adjust variables? in compositions. Context case is bringing in gambling data and having the ability to easily select what data we'd like to show in that method. Thomas, do you have any insight on that?
I just looked actually into one which was a little bit further up.
Oh, okay.
It's sequencing data from an.
We'll get to yours in a second, Jonathan.
And
oh, I missed that.
what I just did, I can share my screen. Where is it?
Which question are you referring to?
Let me see.
Oh, is it Roscoe's? Is it? We'll
No,
get to yours
John,
too.
I think Jonathan. There's one from Jonathan, one from Roscoe.
Mm-hmm.
Roscoe's talking about table sports JSON data to create an example of a leaderboard.
Yeah, it's RF. I understand how the table affects excessive sports JSON.
Roscoe, yeah.
And it's, yeah. So that's what I looking into.
I'm going to repeat the question real fast just before you do this so everyone knows. And I lost the chat here. There it is. Okay, I understand how the table effect accesses sports JSON data to create, for example, a leaderboard. What would be the approach to create a lower third that sequenced through the same JSON data and perhaps let you decide which line of data you would be looking at? Yeah. So Thomas, is this what you're addressing?
Yes. Do I share with the
cool.
right screen?
Yes.
If it's a Google Sheet, yeah.
Google Sheet. Yeah, that's the right one. So yeah, what I used for this example to prepare one quickly is the random data API, which has various options to create sets of data. And in this case, what I used the beers endpoint, which is quite neat, and you can just add a UL parameter to define how many random beer brands you want to have created, which is this one. Then the next one, what I did was I installed a browser extension for the Google Sheet, and was searching for REST API, and there are several of those, and I installed this REST API connector. Installing that one adds a menu down here in the extensions. You can open it, and then you'll get this side panel where you just enter your query, which is this beers, and I want to have 20 of them. I want to write that into the sheet 1 data, and there it is. So when I do another request, it takes a moment, then the beer brands, they just update. So you probably saw that there are now, the first one is Foster's, and now the first one is Amstel. The next thing what I did was building a very simple Google Sheets composition, where I entered my sheet and the value range, which is sheet 1 and A to K. And I added a widget, a composition with a brand, a name, and a style. And when you enter the data in the Google Sheet properly, the widget dynamically creates widget nodes for each of the data that are part of the JSON returned from the Google Sheet. And you can link specific fields then to widget properties. In this case, I linked the brand to the brand, which is there, and you'll see that by the green check mark. Then what I also activated is activated row sequence with an automated advance through all the sets of data of that JSON for every 5 seconds. So now I wait a little bit. Every 5 seconds, the new data set will be shown, and you will see that looping through. So that's one simple option in achieving that. If you want to do more sophisticated things, then I suggest diving into Singular composition scripting, because the combination of Google Sheet widget and composition scripting gives you a lot more flexibility. Okay, so I stop sharing my screen again. It was a
Thanks, Thomas. Hopefully that
Yeah,
answered your
that's great.
question, Roscoe. All right, back to Jonathan. Sorry, we had to jump back. I missed that question from Roscoe. Data streams. Is there a way to have a user interface to funnel through information coming in? If someone doesn't know coding, they can still adjust variables and compositions. The context case was bringing in gambling data and having the ability to easily select the data that we'd like to show in that method. It seems like it could be similar to what you just actually covered, Thomas, where
well, data streams are a programmable data source for real-time, high-speed, high-volume data sources. So, and yeah, gambling data or race car telemetry data or esports gaming data that update several times per second are used within data streams then to refresh and update widget properties, well, several times per second. And that's how to deploy and to access data. It's at the moment just available within the composition script. You can preview the data in the data stream manager. So you see the raw incoming data, but assigning them to specific, well, text widgets, colors, images, whatever you plan to have there is part of composition script.
I'm going to drop in a link. I just dropped in a link about data streams and then specifically the data stream manager. Obviously, it's limited in terms of what you're looking for, Jonathan, at this time, but we consider all, use cases and requests. So thanks for the question. Let's see what else. Luke, without using JavaScript, can we animate a subcomposition when an internal object of this subcomp is updated? So, okay. Like a text object. If a text object changes, can you animate a subcomp? Yeah, that is through scripting though, right? There's not really any other way to do that currently.
No.
I mean,
within Composer, is there?
No, not to, I mean, you can get something to snap on and off. If you had, say, a title that was empty, and as soon as you had value in there, it could turn something on, but it wouldn't do an animation. It would snap on and off.
Yeah, that's unfortunately a JavaScript use case.
You have the update animations on that particular text widget, but a change of the text widget's content requires one line of composition scripting to trigger a subcomposition in and out.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, the update animation is just obviously associated with that particular widget. However, there is a setting, and this isn't quite the same use case, but there is a setting in update animations where you can turn on what's called, I think it's always execute. And in that instance, if there's any change, and correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas, with the way I'm wording this, but any change to any payload or data of your graphic would trigger turn on that update animation every single time, rather than if it's just getting its own change in data. That might sound a little confusing, but play around with that always execute option.
Yeah,
in
always
animations,
execute.
and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, that's for an example. Like if you send the same data twice, let's say you send a text into a text widget, the text property of the text widget, you send hello, and it updates from hello to goodbye, hello to goodbye. But if you send hello and then you said hello again, if that checkbox is enabled for always execute, even though the same data is received, hello, and then once again hello, it will trigger the update animation.
Thank you for explaining that better.
It's a little confusing with that. I think we just put always execute is the verbiage on the update animation.
All right, we've got another interesting question here from Corey. Is there a way to set unique animations between specific elements? For example, a full width lower third would scale down when a corner bug comes on, and then I'm assuming scale back up when it leaves. We've done stuff like this, but again, this is not native within Composer. This is advanced scripting stuff. It's DOM tree related, is that correct?
Yes, you have the option to access the DOM tree from the composition and ingest CSS animations. And that's what you can do. So there you can define dependencies between multiple on-screen visible elements. Like you have a lower third, then there comes a baseline in and it moves up, baseline goes out, lower third moves down, and things like that.
Yeah, so if you create a support ticket, Corey, I just said this in the chat, we might be able to send you a specific example for that. It's something that's already built where, as Thomas said, there's a dependency between sort of two different graphics that isn't logic layer based, but it's, you know, that use case of scaling or moving, positioning. We've released, I think, a few graphics in our template library.
Yep.
Stream pack.
One. It's not.
There's
okay, exactly good. Yeah.
Same, but
yeah. So like a stream. Well, this is in our overlays.uno.
Yeah. Just to show the animation styling.
Yeah, but we can make that available to you guys in Singular. It's just when you extract the composition, you'll see the sophisticated nature of it. It's very scripted, but essentially, I think for all of those stream packs, most all of them, if you bring in, for example, if you have a lower third and you bring in a ticker, it pushes up that lower third. And then when you take out the ticker, it pulls the lower third back down. So there's some of those dependencies, it can create some really interesting, you can do interesting things with that, but it is advanced in terms of building something like that. Let's see what else.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we covered everything, but let us know if we accidentally skipped over the question.
Yeah, I just pasted the URL of an UNO control app where you can play with, and this is then changing the size or the position of lower third, ticker, and topic bars depending on what's active. Just feel free to play with animating in and out the overlays in the control section.
You guys might be competing for control over this one since it's a single app.
Yeah.
So you'll see other people turning on and off. But yeah, it's
questions.
It's cool.
I like this one.
Yeah.
Will anyone be at NAB show in Vegas in April? Yes.
Yeah, we have information on, if you go to our events page, actually I'll drop it in here on our website. We've got links to all the upcoming events, including this webinar was in there.
Yes, we will be at NAB in well, Thomas, myself will definitely be there. So yeah, please come and see us at the Zixi booth and we can show you some cool stuff.
We always get this question about the LED. We don't really have like a supplier. I think Stephen, you ordered this for me, or no, it was Mike. Mike ordered that, and I think yours is different from mine.
Is it time that we do the what is it called, like a merch thing or something? Where
maybe.
Maybe. I mean, we get a lot of requests for this. Mine's a little blown out because like the sun's shining through here on my window to my left, but.
Well, I just have the chicken.
Yes, the chicken.
I didn't know it lit up.
I just have caps and beanies.
Yeah, we get more. You know, it's funny. We increasingly get more and more requests for swag. So
make some side money at NAB. Yeah, one of you guys can run the LED stand.
I love it. Yeah, no, definitely come see us at NAB for sure. Anybody who's there, and we will show you the latest and greatest. We should have a lot of really cool stuff to show at NAB. We will.
Including that control node stuff that Thomas was talking about that's in beta. If you want to play with it, I'm very excited for that. It's gonna be a great update. Okay, I think that's everything, guys. Unless there's any final questions, we're a couple minutes over, but it's not a big deal.
In the chat window, I'm just gonna paste. I know it's an overlays.uno, but the stream pack you were referring to, Catherine, I put it in the chat. That's the one, it's called Helium. And you can see in the preview, that's the one that moves elements around the DOM tree. Is that one in Studio and Singular as well? Because we can clearly put that in there.
I don't think so, but I can make that available. And I think
We can make it
Suzanne,
available.
you linked to one that is
I linked
available.
Helium. It's not as good as
I think some of our
I
stream
didn't do
packs don't
Helium, I
have
did
that.
Radium.
Yeah, not all
Radium.
of the stream packs have that dynamic moving subcompositions around if others are in. Helium does. So Catherine's going to make it available in the Singular template library. You download it. It'll be an app. Right click on the app, extract the composition, swim upstream to the script editor, and you will see the magic in the script editor.
Yeah, just search for stream pack in the template library in the next day, like day or so, and it'll show up. We don't make all of the library of our overlays.uno product available in Singular because it's, you know, different audiences. But if you guys see stuff in that separate experience that you'd like to extract and reverse engineer, just reach out to us and support, and we're happy to do that.
Huge.
I think that's it.
Right.
Yeah, huge thank you to everybody joining us today, and keep the feedback coming in. It's really, really helpful for us. It's imperative because the library of templates, whether they're in Uno or whether they're in Singular, or the things that we build, are completely driven by the user base, 100%. So we appreciate it.
Yes.
That's it. That's all I got. Thank you, Thomas. Great job by you, Suzanne, Catherine. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
guys.
Okay, bye.